Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for staying out of the beer tent thank you. Thanks everybody for staying out of the beer tent for one more hour. You guys are awesome. I'm Wakeman. I am a drama researcher. I research the amount of time that you all spend, myself included, in drama in the workplace and the costs associated with it. We're going to talk a lot about drama today. Early in my career, I worked in a healthcare organization in a surgical area. I was new as a leader on duty, and I had shown up for one of my first shifts the very same day this nurse had shown up for her first shift. She went in to greet the patient. She began to prep the patient for a surgical procedure, and the patient began to get extremely upset. In fact, hysterical. You see, there was a mistake in the electronic medical record, and that was not the procedure the patient came in for. And the patient started to say things like, "This place is unsafe, and I want out, and I want to cancel my procedure," and again became hysterical. Now the nurse became furious. She said, "This is no way to run a healthcare organization. This is absolutely uncalled for. I am not okay with this. I'll be back." And she headed out the door and came and found me. She said, "Wakeman, are you leader on today?" I said, "I am. How can I help?" And she began to vent. She says, "Absolutely ridiculous. The people in admissions can't manage their way out of a paper bag. They should be fired. They don't realize how unsafe a single decision they make can, how it can affect a patient. It's horrible. I shouldn't have to deal with this. If people did their work like I do my work, we wouldn't have these problems. I'm always having to clean up the mess for everybody." And I stood there and I think I surprised her because, see, I wasn't a very well-trained leader, but I was an incredibly well-trained therapist. And I said, "First of all, take a deep breath. Your brain needs oxygen right now. We've got some problem solving to do." And then I asked her a question. I said, "If you were great right now, what would great look like? If you were great right now, what would that look like?" And this question was very disarming for her. And to her credit, she really put energy into answering it. You can tell from her body language, she went from one part of her brain, ego and venting, to another part of her brain, which is where we're all very innovative and collaborative and creative and problem solving and full of teamwork. And she breathed in and she said, "Sai, if I were great, I guess I would be back in the patient room using my skills to let the patient know that this actually is a process that's working, which is why we check multiple times what you're signed in for, and if that's the correct procedure. I would do my darndest to restore the patient's trust. I would involve the provider." She had a plethora of ideas on what great would look like. And so I, as a leader, said, "Awesome, then go be great." Now, am I some sort of nurse whisperer? No, but I do have a lot of expertise in how the brain works and how the ego works. And so she went back to the room, calm. She did a great job. I checked in with her a couple hours later. I said, "How'd it go?" She said, "You know what? It went fine. I involved the provider. I explained the process. The patient's fine. We're all fine." I said, "Well, what'd you learn?" And she said, "As I self-reflected, I learned that when I was asked to participate in a process that I benefit from, other people check her work." She said, "I didn't play that well." And I said, "Awesome, you know better now, be better." This is an amazing technique, an amazing question. What would great look like? And it works almost every time as long as you are open-hearted and people are convinced you care about them. See, I took what would be a typical 45-minute session of drama and moved it through back into results in about 5 minutes flat. Now, I want to talk to you about why a question like this works. This question is a fabulous question. First reason it works is that it moves you from your ego and your venting into the better part of your brain. It uses an ego bypass tool like self-reflection to move you out of venting and into self-reflection, and you'll learn today that you can't do both of those things at the same time. They're mutually exclusive. This question also works because everyone knows what great looks like. Every person knows what great looks like. If you got coffee this morning, you know whether that was a great experience. Everyone knows what great looks like. The problem is we use this information mostly to judge other people. See, I know what great looks like. It's what you're not doing, and it's what you're not doing, and it's how you're not moving a company forward. I know what great looks like. I use that information for evil. I use it to judge others. And another reason this question works, and it's so impactful, is that it actually drives engagement in a very true and sustainable way. Not the way we've all learned to drive engagement by perfecting people's circumstances and putting both Coke and Pepsi in the break room and having foosball tables. It truly drives engagement. When you're venting, you cannot see a place you can have impact. The world is wrong, other people are wrong, everyone is screwed up, there's big problems, it's not my fault, I can't fix this. Your ego really narrows your view. When you self-reflect, it moves you into a better part of your brain where you're like, let me think about how I can impact. Self-reflection leads you to understand where you can have impact, and we all crave impact, and impact is the driver of engagement. Because when I self-reflect, I see that there are hundreds of ways I could impact the situation, and I'm eager to go plug and play because I think I can make a difference. It works with the natural order of things, the natural way of things. Now, it isn't the question that's secret, but it is the technique that is really amazing that I want to teach you about today. Now, you heard me mention that the average hallway interaction is about 45 minutes in length and full of drama. And that comes from some of the research and studies I've done. This highlights an enormous cost of doing business that most of us have come to accept as just inevitable, the cost of drama. See, a 45-minute interaction was taken to a 5-minute interaction with a lot of results and a great outcome by really good, simple leadership. In my research, I accidentally discovered the price of drama. I had a group of physicians, and for the holidays, I had secured for them an electronic health record. We were going to take all their work that they did and put it electronically into this super cool software package, and I could not wait to give it to them. I made them wait until the holiday party, and then I announced it. I'm like, you guys, I got you this amazing technology for Christmas. And they weren't that excited. In fact, they called a special meeting of the Physician Advisory Board, and they put together a PowerPoint deck. And they said things like, if you force us to use software to document our visits, productivity will go down. Slide 2. If productivity goes down, we won't see as many patients in the clinic as we have in the past. Slide 3. If we don't see as many patients, the emergency room will be overrun. And I think by the time we got to slide 6 or 7, it was people will die as you move through this whole analogy. I don't know if you've been in that situation where people, every last slide is people will die if you have us use technology, right? Now, I didn't want to be the administrator that increased mortality rates in Northwest Iowa. I was only about 27 years old. I just didn't want that to be like my first resume builder, right? I am really a lover of data. So I said, you know what, we won't roll this out completely. I don't want to threaten your business in such a way. I said, but we can pilot this and see if your anecdotal fears are true, if they play out in the data. So I took 3 physicians who were willing, and that actually stacked the deck in my favor because most of the time when you do pilots, you have people who are unwilling and resistant involved in your pilots, and it corrupts your data so that you don't know if the new system worked because all your data is corrupted with everybody's resistance. So I had the benefit of being a good researcher. I picked 3 folks who were willing, they could actually keyboard, and I put an observer in their exam rooms. And I said, please keep track of how much time this physician spends with the patient and how much time they spend documenting on the keyboard. 2 columns, time with patient, time with keyboard. Important part of the study because I paid by the minute for physician dictation. So I knew every physician, I knew how many minutes a day for years that they spent dictating. I would have this fabulous baseline. About an hour into this incredible research project, I get a phone call. And one of my observers said, "Sai, we need a third column." I'm like, "For what?" No, I got it through the research board. Just do the physicians spending time with patients and spending time with the keyboard. And they said, "You're gonna miss a cool discovery." And I said, "What would be in the third column?" And they said, how much time the physicians spend complaining about the keyboard or the patient. So we documented it. For that group, we found out that it was on average 2 hours per day per head count. Isn't that astronomical? I thought maybe physicians are big whiners. It couldn't possibly be people like you. So we took that same study and we went out into finance, accounting, HR. We left the hospital. We went into manufacturing. We went into high tech. We did the same study in a lot of different places, and we found that back in the late 90s, that the average amount of time someone spent in drama was 2 hours a day. When I brought out my book last year, I wanted to make sure that study was updated, and I figured that we put so much money and time into developing folks that there's no way this has not gone down. So I wanted a new number. So I partnered with an external company, and we went to do a really solid research study about how much time now we all spend in drama. And some of you are thinking, I don't have drama. Gossiping, venting, complaining, resisting change, judging, scorekeeping, tattling, withholding buy-in. You get it? Like we all have the meeting after the meeting, right? We've got drama. We went out and we looked at how much time people spend today in drama. And the news isn't good, you guys. It's increased to half an hour. What we found is that the average person spends 2.5 hours a day in drama. Walking around going, this is sick and wrong. I wasn't consulted and they should have asked me and I could have told them the right way to do stuff and it's absolutely ridiculous and I'm undervalued. And anybody notice that you have this tape going on in your head? A little color commentary, a narrator called the ego that judges everything it sees as inferior and in need of my attention and mine only. Anybody have that narrator where you just walk through the world and you're just judging, even while you're smiling? 2.5 hours a day, 17 hours a week, 816 hours a year per head count. Now this is a terror amazing opportunity for business. It's mind-blowing. If I came to you with a discovery and I said I could recapture 816 hours per day per head count just simply by updating your leadership philosophy, and you could recapture this and put it back into results, happiness, engagement, people would flip. And that's what they're doing, because up until now we've decided that drama is a cost of doing business. I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be. We're talking $140 billion a year in American businesses. We're talking the demise of some of the best entrepreneurial startups that could have been really great. We're talking people going home at night exhausted, not from their jobs, but from the stories they make up about their jobs. This is a huge opportunity. Now, when we look at the drama, we went on to take a look at what we're doing. If we have a drama issue, right, and let's just define drama as emotional waste. Unproductive thinking, disruptive behavior, okay? Emotional waste. When you have waste in the workplace, how do we get rid of it? Process improvement. As a therapist, I know that when you have emotional waste, you just diffuse it with good mental processes. And what I had found out is that many people are not good owners of their own brains, and they don't understand good mental processes. In fact, so many people actually believe everything they think. It never even dawns on them that they're not even the thinker. They're being thought, that they're just the observer of their thinking. They think if they thought it, it must be true, and I must act on it. So we looked at this huge cost and we thought, what are companies doing today to address this? And there's a lot being done. We're spending more hours than ever in training, more dollars dedicated to leadership training and employee training, more courses. We've got a lot of stuff going on, bigger training budgets. I'm talking millions and millions of dollars. How many of you have been sent to training this year, right? And drama's increased by half an hour per person in spite of all this training and development. How could that be? Some people say it's the millennials. They go, well, these millennials, right, who are now 35 and have 3 kids and, you know, a black lab, these millennials. And what we know is it's not an age situation, it's a human condition. It is people not understanding their own thinking and using good mental processes. We think perhaps that maybe we do all of this training not just to decrease drama, but to increase engagement. And that's what a lot of people tell me. Why do you do all this training? Well, we want people to be highly engaged. So I got into Gallup statistics, and we found out that engagements mostly stayed completely flat. So engagement's flat. We're spending more money ever than training. Drama's increasing. You guys get this isn't looking good. What would you make of that if you were forced to analyze, not forced, but asked to analyze, what would you make of that? Here's what I made of it, is traditional leadership philosophies, traditional leadership tools that we're teaching don't work. They aren't being used and they aren't working. How many of you were taught to keep an open door? I know, me too. I'm like, awesome. I even bought a decorative doorstop with my own money to keep my door open. I was gonna be there for people, and I'm very competitive. When I was first a leader, but I'm also a researcher, I noticed a couple of trends. Trend number 1, when my door was open, there were more problems than when my door was closed. Trend number 2, my people were big fat liars, even though I loved them to death. They would come in, they go, hey, do you have a minute? I'd go, absolutely. Average meeting that started out with, hey, do you have a minute? Lasted 45 minutes in length. Typical conclusion, okay, after the typical topic was tattling, gossiping, scorekeeping, hearsay, things that never happened, things that never would happen. Right? As much as I love these folks, I was just listening to their stories. The typical conclusion they would say, but please don't do anything, I just wanted you to know. Now think about return on investment. My door had become a portal for drama. Not one person came in and said, Sai, I need your help. I just realized I was unfit for human consumption and I would like some coaching. Said no one. It was always my circumstances, my reality isn't what I want. And so it's not that we don't want to keep our doors open, it's that we want to learn to lead very differently. I looked at the sources of drama because I wanted to modernize leadership philosophy so that you could actually diffuse drama in the way you led and also in the way you showed up. There's 2 sides of this. Your own mental processes and then the way you're leading. So we looked at the sources of drama, and here are the top 5. Actually, the 5 categories covered most of it. 32% of drama, the source is ego, pure and simple. Judging, venting, tattling, scorekeeping, minding not your business, but somebody else's business, figuring that if everybody just listened to you, the world would be better, arguing with reality, fighting against what is truly happening, ego. Second source, accountability issues. Ego is first, and then what ego does next is blame others. And ego needs to stay away from accountability because accountability is death of the ego. So it's all about blame and lack of accountability. Now, a lot of people talk about accountability, but they don't really understand accountability. Most people ask me, Sai, what can I do to make this person stop doing X? And I say, you probably can't make them stop doing anything, but you can stop enabling them. See, most drama we have, we either hired it, we allow and enable it, or we are it. And yet when I bring up drama, people go, oh, those people that resist change and those people that, it's all about us. There's a whole buy-in component where people don't realize that buy-in is a verb, and they will give you buy-in on the conditions of. You make sure that I get all the information. You make sure that I only work with teams who are doing their part. You make sure that we have properly staffed and we have the right IT systems. And they withhold buy-in when buy-in's a verb, engagement's a verb, and also people resist change. to this day. In 1989, I gave my first presentation on change. I said, you guys need to get really good at it. Some of you weren't even born then. Everybody promised to get good at it. We are 30 years into this, and people are still resisting change. What other competency do we give people 30 years to get good at? And the resisting to change is just more the ego. The ego has you believing stories like change is hard, but the reality is change is only hard for the unready. If you had skipped all your upgrades on your phone, you had a flip phone since high school, I had kept up with all my upgrades, you give us both a smartphone, is change equally hard for us? No. I'm jumping on, grateful you gave me a new smartphone, I'm getting all my stuff off the cloud, I'm in business, the other person's curled up in the fetal position, and we actually believe that change is hard. But it's not hard except for the unready. So I started just thinking how we could blow apart traditional leadership methods and modernize them so that we could actually make a dent and recapture and upcycle this incredible energy that's going into drama. And I want to talk to you about how to do that. I believe the leader's role is not to inspire or motivate others. It's not even possible. I can't motivate you. I can't inspire you. But my new role as a leader is to teach you good mental processes to eliminate emotional waste in the workplace. When you use good mental processes, I get better results and you are happier and by definition, engaged by choice. We've got to move away of believing that leaders can do things for other people. I was a therapist for 9 years before I became a leader. They said, Sai, you're responsible for other people's happiness. You need to make sure they're engaged. To cure that this is not functional. And when people believe they're dependent on their circumstances for their engagement, they learn to resent you. And engagement without accountability creates entitlement. And that's where we're heading in many organizations. Now, when the going gets tough, most humans respond predictably. So I don't want you to think that I'm an angry person mad at human beings. I want you to know that I'm someone who understands humans. And when the going gets tough, when we're asked to deliver aggressive agendas with limited resources time and time again, if you're a human, the first thing you'll do is very predictable, you'll fantasize about quitting. Every one of you will fantasize that the grass is greener in another company. You'll fantasize about winning the lottery. You'll fantasize about taking a sabbatical or entering the gig economy where you're your own boss. Some of you fantasize about being the Walmart greeter guy because that job looks easy. Gallup says that 71% of Americans quit their jobs every single day. 71%. Problem is they keep coming to work and getting a paycheck. The average percentage of people actively or passively disengaged in the workplace is 71%. People step down, people quit rather than stepping up. Stepping down doesn't feel good. We crave impact. So when we do step down, our ego comes in and helps us feel better by justifying why we had to. When you go home at the end of the day, and somebody says, how was your day? Or you don't have somebody, you have a black lab, and they go, how was your day, right? Not one of us goes, it was awesome. I just really slacked off, did very little, erased emails 30 at a time without reading them. I feel great. Says no one. We crave impact. We want to make a difference. But we're not understanding necessarily how that works. So when we step down, we do a behavior called BMW driving, which is bitching, moaning, and whining about why we had to. That's what BMW driving stands for. So in the meeting, we're with somebody and they go, you guys, we're going to do more with less, and we're going to really shake things up, and we're going to have to restructure and make some moves, and we're going to have people doing different things at different times, and we're going to throw a bunch of change in here. And in the meeting, most of us are like, absolutely, I'm all in. This will be a gold star on my electronic resume. I love this place. And then the meeting after the meeting, in the cubes and the parking lot and the beer tents, we have the meeting after the meeting where we go, you know what? This is absolutely the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. Obviously, no one's checked this out. And we BMW drive about how it's impossible to get things done. And then we go looking for reasons why it can't be done rather than putting our energy into focusing on how it could be done. And we start to look at reality and we find our answer. None of this can be done because we don't have enough people, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough communication, we don't have enough vision, there aren't high enough standards, not everybody's held to the same standard. We've got leaders that are inconsistent, we weren't communicated with, sometimes we don't find out until the last minute, most of the time I'm not consulted. Anybody have a bit of a list that if only reality were completely different, I would be a rock star? See, the problem with this is that the only value you add as a human being is in imperfect circumstances. If things were perfect, we'd just Amazon.com it. We wouldn't need you. And yet when things are imperfect, we really start to complain. And here's what happens is we go to find someone that can help us. And we go, here's all of our reality, it's just really wrong. And I need a different boss, I need a different job, and I need more communication and more money and more teamwork, and I need a different IT system, and I need, here's my list of terroristic demands that I need. And it never dawns on us that it's not about reality. What are the odds of somebody being able to change reality anytime soon over the course of the next month or two? Should we just call it 0? Which then gives all of us gas for our BMWs and more justification on if nobody else is going to care, I'm not going to care. I cannot tell you the number of people who came to me unhappy. When I asked them why they were unhappy, they told me about their circumstances as a therapist. They said, well, you don't understand. My husband doesn't do what I want him to do, and I don't like my boss and my job, and the rules aren't clear, and there's just really bad communication, and I don't have enough money, and I need to live someplace different, and I need different in-laws. And I'm like, wow, odds of you being happy anytime soon are low. Because your happiness isn't correlated to your circumstances, it's correlated to the amount of accountability you take for your circumstances. So as a leader, when people come to me wanting their circumstances different, I do something very bold. I instead work to call them to greatness with a question like, what would great look like? So that they can move to a higher level of consciousness, they can operate at a higher level of frequency, so that they can impact their reality from a whole different mindset and a whole different place. Helping people focus on how we could rather than why we can't. Most leaders roll something out and they go, I'm so sorry to have to ask you this, but we had a regulation change, and so we need to work differently, and I know it's going to be a bummer, and I know you don't have time, and I know this is going to be hard, and it's a ridiculous regulation, and I'm really sorry we have to do it, but if out of the goodness of your heart you can do the best you can, I'd appreciate it. And I reinforce that it probably can't be done. As a leader who's operating under a new mindset, you say, here's the regulation that's changed. I'm going to explain it to you, and I want us all focused on how we can make this change and have it be least disruptive to the business. What's your idea? What's your idea? What's your idea? And it's moving energy. See, leaders don't manage people, they manage energy. They manage energy away from why we can't to how we could. They unlock innovation. As I said, your happiness isn't about your circumstances, it's about the amount of accountability you take for your circumstances, and we get so confused on this, so confused. My team that I was leading, it was a HR team in healthcare, and we had just found out one day we're moving for the 5th time, and they had torches and pitchforks. So it was 5 moves in a single year, and they were ticked off, they were done. They said, you guys, what's going on? And they said, what about our engagement? We don't have the tools we need to do our jobs. We live out of boxes. If we had a best friend at work, they could never find us, sigh, because no one knows where our offices are. And it had been a rough year. The first move, we moved into offices in the older part of the organization so we could build a new heart center. And we got headaches, and they came and took our blood. And they gave us a pamphlet on lead poisoning. And they moved us very quickly. When we came back to get our binders, there was police tape over the entrance. We couldn't go back in. It was a contaminated space. We moved to a new space where we could see our new offices being built in the Heart Center. And then they found out they were built on Native American burial grounds. And so we watched them being torn down, right thing to do, a little hard to watch, right? And we were just being told we were moving for the 5th time. I said, what can I do? What do you want me to do? And they said, go to the CEO and have him stop moving us. Change our reality. And I fell for it. I said, you guys are suffering. I'll go represent my people. And I went straight to the executive suite. I demanded to see Doug Johnson, the CEO. I was going to tell him how to treat my people. We were the top teams in the nation, and he was moving us around like we were boxes ourselves. And I was all ready to have my list of terroristic demands, make sure he knew that my people were suffering. And I went up to the administrative support person and I said, I demand to see Doug Johnson. She goes, right away, right away. She picked up the phone. She goes, she's here. Yeah, you need to see her right now. What I didn't realize until years later, they knew I'd commit career suicide often. So they told the administrative support person if I ever come up and demand to see Doug Johnson, to pretend like she was calling him and to call my mentor instead. So I'm waiting. I turn around, Sister Mary Catherine's right there. I'm like, Sister Mary Catherine, what are you always doing here when I'm trying to see Doug? She's like, well, I was just in the area. She goes, what's up, Si? I go, we're moving again. My people are suffering. And she goes, oh my gosh, your people are suffering? Why are your folks suffering? I said, because we move all the time. And she goes, oh, I've noticed that you move a lot. That's your reality, but I'm wondering why they're suffering. I said, because we move all the time. She goes, I get it, Si, that's your reality. I'm just wondering why they're suffering. I'm like, oh, grasshopper, I hate these questions. Dang it. See, my team wasn't suffering because we moved all the time. My team was suffering because after 4 moves, we hadn't yet gotten mobile. If we grew in our skill set of mobility, moving wouldn't hurt. If I'm in a football stance and you come to move me, you might get hurt. But if I'm on roller skates, you come to move me, I am just grateful for the pump of energy that overcame my inertia. Thank you. 2 ways to move, joy or misery, your choice. Reality is we're moving. She was the first leader that taught me how to separate out reality from suffering. Your reality is your reality. Suffering is your choice. Suffering is your ego's option. I work in healthcare often. I'll go into an ICU. I'm like, how's today going? They go, oh my gosh, it's crazy. I'm like, oh, I looked at the schedule. It looks like you guys are really busy. Busy or crazy? I would just call it busy. I saw the schedule is very busy. Is it busy or crazy? They're like, well, Si, it's crazy. And I go, well, how did it get from busy to crazy? Like, what's the difference? And one nurse looked at me and she goes, oh, I just added that part. Which is what we do every day. We take something busy and we add crazy about 2.5 hours a day per person. Because we're not using good mental processes to ask ourselves what's true. Is it busy or crazy? And if I want it to be busy, how can I go through the day with joy, not misery? This is all within our own control. I went back to the team. I said, you guys, we're gonna move whenever they need to move us. I said, but here's my new vision. I would love for us to get so good at moving, so freaky fast, that when they called us and said, can you move Monday? We're able to go, what are you doing in 10 minutes? And they were like, Si, we can't do it, it's not possible. This is actually the early 90s. You can see from my gray hair, I'm a little old, but it's a great story. They said, we can't. And I said, we gotta, let's make it happen. Let's conserve the energy you put in drama and let's put it into moving. My most sarcastic guy, Ted, he goes, so like, you just want us to become like nomad HRs. I go, oh my gosh, Ted, that's a genius idea. What else you got, buddy? He's like, oh, so we can just get like Dora the Explorer backpacks and like, just be on the road. And like, oh my gosh, I bet marketing has backpacks. They give them away for free. Go get 6 of them. My team started to focus on how we could, not why we can't, because as a leader, I helped them use a better mental process. Now, it didn't make them that much happier until we were super successful. They started coming up with ideas. One said the cell phone company wants us to use cell phones instead of pagers, but we don't know if they interfere with heart monitoring systems. He worked out a deal with the cell phone company. We got free phones for a year. We worked with biomed engineers. They tested them in our facility. My HR team and the biomed group actually published a national study, and they're one of the reasons that you can use cell phones in hospitals today. They initiated that work. The innovation was mind-blowing. Ted's friends came. His name was Troy. He goes, I have a dirty little secret. I go, Troy, I don't want to know your dirty little secrets, man. I might have to fire you if you tell me. I was telling you. He goes, well, I think you'll like this one. He goes, remember the radiologist got the new imaging system? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, they got 3 free laptops with that system, but they're so tech adverse, they've never taken them out of the boxes. He goes, I may or may not have replaced them with bricks of equal weight. We have free laptops. My team got Nomad-like, and we were in the 90s, our scores improved. We were rocking it because we were out on the units we served. We were recruiting before they even had to fill out a piece of paper. We were coaching in the moment. Our results went up. We even started to work from home on Friday and no one noticed because they didn't even know it was possible in the 90s. My team loved it. One Friday, payroll went wrong. Finance called and said, "Si, payroll's all messed up. Get all hands on deck. We're coming down to your office." I'm like, no, because we worked from home on Fridays. So we got busted. Imagine that scandal. HR has laptops, cell phones, and works from home on Fridays, and no one else in the organization does. So I was getting my team's resumes ready. We were talking about how this is going to happen. Finance went back and complained to their CFO. They're like, she gets to work from home and so does her team. And I was surprised. Doug Johnson, that CEO I'd never met because Sister Mary Kathleen kept us apart. He amazed me. He said, Wakeman's team, they're producing amazing results. They can work from Tahiti as far as I care. Your team, I'm still waiting for my budget variance reports. You should stay put. And my team learned you do not ask for benefits on the promise of results. You deliver results and benefits follow. And that was a profound lesson. So here's some ways I was leading differently. I was teaching my team that your circumstances aren't the reasons you can't succeed, they're the reality in which you must succeed. And we spent so much time railing against reality. And then I realized that not only do I just need to lead them differently, I need to act differently myself, and I need to have them step up and act differently even when I wasn't around. There's some individual things that they needed to do. Everybody's got the power to do this. Now, I want to teach you for a minute before we wrap up that your ego is not your amigo, and I don't want you to, I'll just let that sink in for just a minute. Your ego, as I said before, is the part of your brain that is always filtering. It's always color commentary. It's always narrating. When you wake up in the morning, how many of you wake up and then make the decision, I shall start thinking now? Or do you wake up and you're already being thought? Yeah, it's already going. So this ego is like wearing a pair of prescription glasses that are the wrong prescription. It is constantly distorting your view of reality. It is giving you really corrupted information. The ego, in order to stay alive, eats anger for lunch, so it needs to stay mildly irritated all the time. It needs to see insult where there isn't any. I worked with a woman, she said, this culture is toxic. I said, it is? I was having a blast. Tell me some examples, I want to help. She goes, well, here's one. And she showed me an email she'd just received that said, you're invited to an ice cream social at 2 o'clock this afternoon in the lobby. I'm like, free ice cream? Are you serious? I love this place. I go, how can you be mad about free ice cream? She goes, you don't know the backstory. They schedule these socials when they know our team can't go. And I thought, you know, is that true? I've met your HR team. That would require them to do algebra, like an X and a Y. They're liberal arts majors, man. They cannot even, there's no way they could figure that out. And she's like, well, I'm lactose intolerant, and they don't offer an alternative. Like, she needed to stay mad. Have you ever been around the ego? We all have this human condition. It is our filter on reality. Now, here's something you need to know about your brain. Your brain has a toggle switch. It's very similar to a 2-year-old in this one function. If I wanted to get this clicker away from a 2-year-old, what would be a bad strategy? To just grab it, right? You could drag a 2-year-old across the stage with a clicker, because the minute you grab it, it's all they have, and now, game on. What's a good way to get this clicker away from a 2-year-old? Distract. Yeah, distract them. Give them something else. Hey, do you want this placard with my name on it? When you do that, It's so confusing because they can't do two at once. To take the placard, they got to drop the clicker. If you really want to mess with them, you go, or you want the clicker back. They're like, no. They got to drop the placard. Now, this is important stuff because to get a clicker away from a 2-year-old, you don't just grab it. To move somebody out of ego, you don't just punch them in the face and ignite the ego. And yet most leadership traditions teach you how to do that. I'd like to give you some feedback. Bam. How many of you love those words? I'm like, dude, I'm a therapist. I don't even attempt giving people feedback, right? I go, you might want to consider, and don't take my word for it, but I would check it out for yourself. That's how we give feedback. Because we know these people are dangerous sometimes, right? So the only way to get the clicker away is to give it something else. We call that the great ego bypass. Now, clicker and placard, ego and self-reflection. Your brain can't do both at once. If you are venting in ego, you can't self-reflect. If you're self-reflecting, you can't vent. There's a toggle switch between your low self and your high self. Everybody follow that logic? I can't vent and self-reflect at the same time. Venting's the work of the ego. You've got a toggle switch between your low self and your high self. You are in charge of your own toggle switch. Venting actually is the ego's way of avoiding self-reflection. When you're venting, it's the ego's way of making sure it never has to self-reflect and look at itself. Self-reflection's the foundation of accountability. It's the superpower you have to toggle switch out of ego and venting into accountability. And accountability is really death to the ego. It seems that self-reflection is this amazing drama diffuser. Because a question like what would great look like pops you into the better part of your brain, gets you self-reflecting, finds 100 ways to have impact, and then you go engage. Or you can just say venting and believe that reality stinks and there's nothing you can do because you're a victim. Toggle switch. Now, a lot of people go, sigh, don't people need time to vent? No. Venting is what you do. You're sharing a story you made up that never even happened. People go, sigh, venting feels so good. I go, so does crack cocaine, I've heard. I've heard. But we don't let you do that at work. When you vent, you create a neural pathway, and that neural pathway can only be fed with more venting, so venting begets venting. And venting and sharing feelings are different. I'm frustrated that my son didn't put his car in the garage last night. One sentence, that's my feelings. The fact that he does this crap on purpose, he's gonna turn into a juvenile delinquent, and he takes after his dad, which is why I divorced him, like all of that. Okay, that's just story. That's just venting. And so most of us are suffering from things that never happened. Self-reflection is this form of personal curiosity that really brings so much happiness into your life because it leads to accountability and impact. It leads you away from venting. It's the toggle switch. It's absolutely miracle, and it's simple questions. What do I know for sure? What could I do next that would add value? What could I do to help? What would great look like? Whenever I find myself unhappy and disgusted with what's going on, a simple question can toggle switch me out of ego and venting into self-reflection. I can identify a way I can have impacts. I get real honest, and the truth will set you free. And it's amazing. And there's people in the audience here that have been there too. And if you're starting to figure out that your ego's not your amigo, on your way out, pick up one of these cool hats, our gift to you. Okay, it's how you find us at Wakeman, all our social media. Grab a hat, it's yours. It can start to remind you that your ego's not your amigo. See, the ego doesn't understand, but I want you to understand that suffering is completely optional. There's two ways to go through the day. Your choice, joy or misery, but we are so good at suffering. And by the way, suffering is almost always self-imposed. My phone rings. It's my boss, Ron. Ron's a unique guy. He names all projects after exotic animals. I pick up the phone. There's no pain because my ego's not involved. I'm not suffering. The phone rang, I answered it. Ron says, how are you coming on Project Zebra? I go, let me check. And I looked at my SAS report. I go, Ron, I'm behind. There's no pain. I'm telling the truth. Ron says, I've noticed you're behind on a lot of things. Try that on for size. said, you know, Ron, I've noticed that about myself too. There's no shame. How many of you are behind on a lot of things? Let's be honest, just confess. We all are. He goes, well, Sai, the board is meeting Thursday. They're going to be looking at that project. I'm calling you to give you a heads up. Take all the energy you got, girl, put it in that project, make it pretty for the board meeting Thursday. I'm like, dang, Ron, good talk. Thanks for calling. I have no suffering at all until my ego gets into the picture. Oh, let me think about this. I start believing my own thinking. If he believes that I believe that the board just came up with looking at my project, baloney. He threw me under the bus. He's dialing for dollars. He gave the board the idea to look at that project. He's trying to catch me. He is looking for projects to cancel. He has canceled one of my projects already. If I get a second project canceled, I will probably be fired. And I have a kid in med school. And my kid in med school wanted to help kids in Uganda, and now kids in Uganda are gonna die. Yeah. 2 phone calls, only one happened, right? My boss is a micromanager, treats me like a child, or my boss called me and checked on my project. But how many of you are a little guilty of believing your own ego? Yeah. I get to go hiking every year in the mountains in Mexico. They pay me to do this. This is some folks that worked with Google on the Human Genome Project. I'm their like celebration gift. We hike 10 to 12 miles a day, and we talk about leadership, and we have a blast. I'm up on top of the mountain one day with this group, and I'm looking over the valley, and I am experiencing the most grateful heart a woman has ever had. I'm like, dude, pinch me. They pay me to take people hiking in mountains and talk about leadership. Life is pretty good. I won life's lottery. I'm loving my life right now. I turn to lead the group on, and I hate this job. I can't believe they make me do this crap. Now, how do you go from love life to I hate my job in 12 seconds or less? Here's what happened. I turned to walk away. There's something squiggly up on the path. I hate squiggly. The minute I thought the thought that is a snake, I am freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a snake. And my body, everything, it starts changing. I think the thought that's the snake, my respiration goes up. My need to urinate goes up. My reasoning skills go down. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get bit by the snake and be medevaced off the mountain and die. Like, this is horrible. I am racing in my mind to come up with a plan because as I'm walking towards the snake, my legs feel like lead, and I've got to figure out what to do when I get bit. And I've had first aid training, and I can't remember anything about anti-venom procedure. And then I remember a John Wayne movie I saw when I was little. He got bit in the hand by a rattlesnake when he reached in these rocks to get his gun out. You know what John did? Pulled out his pocket knife, cut an X in his hand, sucked the venom out, spit it out, saved his own life. Only plan I got. So I know that survivors practice. So I'm pulling out my pocket knife and I'm psyching myself up. I'm like, okay, I can cut an X on my ankle. I got this. And then I start thinking, okay, then all I have to do is suck my own ankle. Crap, I'm gonna die. Like it went like that. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, I'll just ask the guy from Google if he'll suck my ankle in an emergency. My kids are gonna learn my dirty little secret. They're gonna be like, well, she's limber, she goes to yoga every week, why couldn't she suck her own ankle? But I don't go to yoga every week, you guys. I put on yoga pants that I've never been to yoga. And I tell them I'm going to yoga, and I go to the club, and I drink Bloody Marys with my girlfriends. So my life's falling apart. I get up there, and that is a rope off somebody's saddlebag. My stress. A snake or my thinking? My story or my reality? My stress comes from my story, and I tell you what, you guys turn ropes into snakes every single day. You turn ropes into snakes every single day, 2.5 hours a day. And your teams turn ropes into snakes. And the question that will set you free is, what do I know for sure? And what can I do next that would add value? And I would just give you the advice to stop believing everything you think. Is this making sense to you guys? Yes. Yeah. The minute you start judging, you stop helping, you stop leading, you stop adding value. And it's big, big stuff. Now, I went to a workshop and I wanted to learn more about just how much I judge and evaluate, because your ego's sneaky. And so I wanted to really go deep in this. So I go to this workshop, and I'm just blown away by how often we judge and evaluate. I look at the carpet, and I go, who thought to put ridiculous names on this carpet? Does anybody like have ego narration about this? And what time is this thing done? And is she ever gonna shut up? Like, you guys are thinking stuff right now, right? I go to this workshop, and I learn how much I judge. And she said, now you have to practice tonight. Go to dinner, and no judging, no evaluation, just speak the truth, only talk in facts. You guys try this. It's hard. We went out to dinner, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking all kinds of stuff I can't say. Like, this woman walks by, those boots are never meant to go with that dress, and I can't say a word to the table. I'm like, someone should tell her. Like, we need to do an intervention. Like, I can't complain how hot it is. I can't do anything. There's no judging. I'm sitting here, and there is some sweat leaving my body. So I tried to get positive. I said, the stars are beautiful. And this guy confronts me, and he goes, that's judging. He goes, if you're factual, you would say there's approximately 1.2 trillion stars in the sky visible to the naked eye. And I go, well, the chicken's good. He goes, that's judging. All we know is we're eating chicken. And another guy chimed in, and he goes, well, I mean, theoretically, the chef says it's chicken, but we have no way of knowing without a DNA match. Like, this is getting ridiculous. So we all did, the only thing we could do, you guys, we talked about nothing. We didn't speak, because most of what you say is judgment, evaluation, ego story. There's nothing left to talk about. We sat there in silence. I would think of something, and it would be judgment. I couldn't say it. I'd think of something, it'd be judgment. I couldn't say it. And after this period of silence, the most incredible thing happened. We started to talk about the only thing we could, what we wanted to create to better the world. One guy said, I know what we can talk about. I'm retiring in 3 months, and I want to work for clean water in the world. And he told a story where he was in the Grand Canyon, got stranded to help a buddy out. They were without water for 3 days. He's like, I want to create clean water in the world. And he said that. Do you know what the rest of us did? Man, we started crowdsourcing that puppy. We got our phones out, and we're like, dude, I know this guy with the Bill Gates Foundation, and they work with the Lions Club, Winkatch and the Rotary Club, and we're trading, we're airdropping numbers back and forth, and we're setting this guy up for success. He said a dream, and we all jumped in to innovate and collaborate and help make it happen, because that's our natural state once the drama's gone, is innovation. Somebody else said, you know what, I want to just use my son's room after he moves out as a gym. It's not, saving the world, but that's my dream I want to create, is to have my own home gym so that he can't move back in so easily. Everybody jumped in. They're like, I have a trainer, and he'll design the equipment. He'll set it up for you. He'll come right to your house. Every problem that they came up with, we all just jumped in and crowdsourced it and introduced and made connections and really worked towards doing great stuff. See, it dawned on me in that moment, is our natural state once the drama's gone. When people call me up for training to teach their people to be innovative and collaborative and teamwork and have accountability, I know here's where we're off track. I don't have to teach you how to be that. All of you are that once the drama's gone. That's who you all are when you have bypassed and toggled out of your ego, your low self, into your high self. When you're operating at a higher level of consciousness, it's the difference between swimming through mud and walking through air. Same job, same boss, same day, suffering optional, work is effortless. You gotta practice unhooking from this. In fact, when they said to Michelangelo, after he had carved David, beautiful sculpture of David, they asked him the question, wow, was it hard? And he goes, actually, it was easy. I just removed everything that wasn't David. And for you who are trying to develop yourself and improve, and for others that you're trying to lead and you're trying to get them to grow and develop, you're working it from the wrong end, I promise you. These folks already are these things once the drama's gone. It's exciting to me to think about happiness and success as our natural state once the drama's gone. And it's truly your natural state once the drama's gone. If you enjoyed this program, I would love for you to review it. Let us know your thoughts, even if you didn't enjoy it, how I could improve. If you're starting to get the idea that you might have an ego issue, again, take a hat. And then we've got some good news for you. I absolutely believe that there's a new way of working. It's no ego. It's out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing. And I am committed to meeting you there. And in the meantime, we've got a ton of great resources for you for free. We have a beautiful No Ego podcast. We've got tons of great content on all of the channels. I really hope that you connect. Thank you. Thank you.